Hi, seventh graders. If you can believe it, I cannot find a good video about Plateau people's architecture. I decided to just make a quick video myself to talk about the housing and the settlement patterns, because this is something that makes the Plateau people unique, especially as compared to the coastal Salish people. The first thing to know is that in the winter, Plateau people resided in permanent villages. So they stayed in one place, they had their housing and community, they stayed in one place during the winter. The remainder of the year, um, their time was spent between villages and a variety of, as it says here, semi-permanent camps conveniently situated for hunting and gathering. So there was more movement. Um, I feel like this might have been a vocab word like forever ago, but nomadic means like moving versus, settled in one place. So they were more nomadic outside of the winter, following food and hunting as their means of survival. And it says that as soon as horses were adopted, that made their ability to be nomadic even easier, because they were able to use horses for travel to move to these different, like their permanent village and the semi-permanent sort of camps, where they were able to hunt more easily. So because of these different types of settlement, they had different types of housing as well. So one of the forms of housing that was more temporary is a teepee, which is often like the stereotyped form of housing for Native peoples. Not every tribe in our country used teepees, but the Plateau people were people who did use teepees because of their temporary nature. So they were good for packing up, bringing with them as they went on their hunting trips, provided enough shelter to protect them, keep them safe, but it was more temporary. And then there also were things called pit houses, which you can see in this drawing. It's kind of like you get to see inside and outside. They used the ground to sort of like support their shelter, and then they used materials. Let me switch over to my other tab for a second. I want to get the right. Um, they used wooden posts, beams. Um, there was usually a smoke hole to support, the release of smoke from fires. Um, yeah, so mainly wood. So that was, the more permanent housing that they would have in their villages. And I just want to point to a couple different things. Move my little picture over there. Going back to what I was mentioning before, that they relied on wild foods for subsistence, meaning what they ate and survived on. So like salmon, trout, eels, suckers, other fish were abundant in the rivers. So fishing was really, really important. And we saw that with the coastal Salish as well. Fishing is really important. Communities also built these, it says here, like fish wares, or like a fish pen almost, so that they would fish, and then they'd keep the fish in like a communal area, to like house the fish until they were ready to be eaten. They also would hunt deer, elk, bear, caribou, buffalo, and they would use bow and arrows and sometimes a short spear in their hunting. And then in tracking animals, they would wear long and narrow snowshoes. And again, I noticed that I just spoke in past tense. Some of this is past tense, and some of this should be in current tense. Um, so, I think I try to really reiterate this a lot, that when we're talking about Native people, it's not like, oh, the olden days only. There were obviously a lot more Native peoples before the European settlers came, and basically caused a lot of havoc and disease and violence, as we talked about with California natives a couple weeks ago. Um, So like in some ways it makes sense to talk about the past. But I also like, I don't want anyone to think that we are only talking about the past. Because again, even as we talk about history, there's still connections to the present. So, anyways, here was my short video on some of the sort of settlement and architecture of the Plateau people. And there's an article that I'm also going to link, not what this is copied and pasted from, a different article. But hopefully this helps just kind of continue to secure your learning. And I'm excited to keep learning with you. Enjoy your day, everyone.